All right, it's recording now. Oh, Dave, thank you, mate. It's so good to have you on. I really appreciate this. We've just been talking for a little while before the camera started recording, and yeah, I can't tell you how excited I am to have you here with me for this. So
Oh
thanks.
well, no, well, thanks for having me. I mean, yeah, like I'm really passionate about my job. I love helping people. I can't stress that enough. I mean, that's my main goal is to help people become the best versions of themselves. And so when you ask me to come on and obviously just give my input into helping people, then I was more than happy to do that. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's an honor. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you for doing this. I first met you down at the gym at at your gym, Fifth Element Wellness, down in Melbourne. When I moved to a new city, I was looking for a new home and stumbled in and just found a gem. What you guys do down there is incredible. I've never seen an environment and a culture like it. If anyone's watching this down in Melbourne, you have to check out the gym, Fifth Element. Um, the holistic approach, the integrative approach towards health, wellness, fitness, strength, uh, your belief system, and the people that you've put together in there, both the clients and the staff, is absolutely phenomenal. You should be very, very proud of what you've created.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, we are super proud of what Fifth Element has turned out to be. I mean, community is such an important aspect. I mean, I'm not necessarily going to talk about that too much, but I mean, the one thing I know is like we know the biochemical reactions of when you train. We know the biochemical reactions of when you do things like breathe, when you do cold therapy, when you do heat therapy, and actually we know the biochemical reactions of when you eat good quality food. But I'm telling you, when you do that in a community, those biochemical reactions are more powerful.
Right.
So that's 100% proven. So you actually have the ability to repair neurons and repair brain cells. There's a particular thing called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. So just by having community and being in a strong community, you have the ability to like repair your brain, yeah, and actually help with neurotransmitters. So actually to help with your mood and your
Wow.
the way you approach things. So it's really important.
That has been an area of interest for you lately, because I know that you're doing some of that work which revolves around, the people who live the longest on the planet. And isn't it true that one of the main factors that they found was the sense of community and family? And
Yeah, look, 100%. Like everyone's sort of like investigating their food and going, oh, well, they eat this berry and they eat this certain food. And the reality is, you look at those blue zone areas and they eat different types of foods. And I mean, and it's according to their environment and so forth. And really, the most defining factors is things like their sense of purpose, their sense of belonging, that they eat together, they celebrate together. And it is like, even like you look at the elderly there, and then they're just surrounded by youth, and that makes them younger and actually helps with their longevity. I mean, scrounging around and looking at what food they're eating. I mean, that eat from the land, that's the most defining thing. Does that make sense? So the
yeah,
quality of the food that they're eating is high
yeah.
quality. But those factors are really the defining reason that they live such a long and fulfilling life. Yeah, 100%.
And I love that you started with that, because obviously you're here, and I would say that as far as I'm concerned, one of the most, I would say, like, the word, you are so deep into gut health and the science behind it. And I love hearing you talk. But at the same time, the first thing that you came out to essentially talk about was a sense of community, which can't really be measured, with MyFitnessPal or anything like that.
No. I mean, like I have gone further down that realms of of saying that, like, look, like for me, I'm so analytical and I like looking in depth at what's going on in someone's biochemistry and what's going on internally in their digestive system and so forth. Like, that's what I'm really passionate about, and that's the stuff that I love to correct. But I can correct that stuff, but if we don't correct the underlying issues in terms of sometimes what's going on in the person's brain, and what I mean by that is like them not having purpose and them not feeling that they have a strong community, them being in a toxic environment and so forth. Well, guess what's going to happen? Like, this is going to cause digestive stress again. Okay, and it just becomes this like vicious cycle. Does that make sense? It's sort of, it's a little bit like the chicken before the egg scenario. Okay, because like your environment, and it's all to do with your allostatic load in terms of what you're surrounded by. Is it a toxic environment? Have you been exposed to trauma and injuries? And what physiological stresses do you have? What you're putting internally in your body, like what toxins, sugar, alcohol, all these, and these all add to your allostatic load. Yeah, okay.
What is that word?
Allostatic load. I mean, the body will adapt to stress. Mm-hmm. Okay, like your body's always going to try and help you out. Yeah, okay. And so we can just pile on all these different stresses. Yeah, okay. And the body has to increase its homeostasis, so that you can survive. Because otherwise, if we're just piling on all these bad stresses and so forth, then that can lead to disease and illness and eventually, like, cell damage and all that type of stuff, and then eventually it might lead to death. So right. the body will adapt to this. Yeah, okay. And then what's happening with a lot of people is this allostatic load is getting so big that then it actually causes internal issues, like where opportunistic bacteria, things like leaky gut, things like SIBO, which is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and all these things just take advantage of the situation. Does that make sense? And now, the person might go, oh, look, I've been feeling so terrible. And then they go start doing some meditation, some mindset, and they start doing some things like yoga. But the reality is those things are going to stem the flow a little bit. But now what the person is stuck with is they're stuck with digestive stress.
Okay.
And so now the digestive stress is causing stress here. Does that make sense? And like bacteria don't go, well, Nathan's having a bit of a sleep, so we're gonna take a little bit of a break. Yeah, okay. Like the bacteria, when you've got bacterial issues and when you've got gut issues, you've got those issues 24 hours a day. You've got that stress 24 hours a day. So you can imagine that's a really, really high burden on the body. Okay, and that's where a lot of people are sitting. Okay, so now the digestive stress is causing stress here, but likewise, I can correct the digestive issues. But if they haven't changed their behaviors, if they haven't changed haven't addressed their limiting beliefs, if they haven't, even looked at things like their values, if they haven't started to do things like metacognition and meditation to observe their thoughts, well, guess what's going to happen? They're going to slip back into those habits, and then they cause digestive stress again. And it just becomes this vicious cycle, Nate.
Wow. So much in there that I want to talk more about. So all of that happening, I start to see it as a little bit like, because if we link it back to the community in the blue zone, these areas of the world where people live the longest, is that right?
Yeah. You've got Sardinia, you've got Okinawa in Japan, you've got the south of California, believe it or not, okay? Because theirs is more based on religion, so they've got purpose, yeah? Okay. You've got Ikaria in Greece, and you've got Nicoya, which is sort of a certain part of Costa Rica. A lot of people are really surprised with things like Costa Rica because they think third world country and so forth, but once again, it just comes down to that, sense of purpose. They eat off the land, they eat according to their environment. And at the same time, Nathan, I don't want people to just look up what they're doing in Sardinia and go, well, if I drink, 3 small glasses of wine a day, then that means I'm going to live to, 110, because
Right.
like they've got to completely, I mean, the wine that they consume, it's a Grenache grape, and Grenache grape has 3 times the amount of flavonoids than other grapes. Yeah, okay. And obviously they're not using a lot of the sulfates and chemicals and all those types of things. So it's.
So do you see that happen? Do you see that happening as a pattern that's going on, where we kind of identify these things that, when we look at them in isolation, cause or have good health associated with them, and we want to take that and kind of extract it and package it and give it, and people want to.
Yeah, like 100%. And like what people are doing is they look at someone who might go, well, I got really lean and I was doing this, and then they just copy it. Yeah, okay. And the reality is, the one thing is, everyone is different, and the way I approach things is, obviously I treat every single person as an individual, and that's why when people like pull up research papers and go, oh well, look at this research paper and it says if you drink 3 cups of coffee a day that you're going to live longer. I mean, like, I just want people to understand. I mean, the coffee industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, yeah, okay, and they have their own interests at heart, yeah, okay, and they want to sell more coffee. Now, a lot of those studies are done on athletes, and they're done in a controlled environment when the person is not stressed out. They're not working a 10-hour day, a 12-hour day. They're not looking after 4 kids. Yeah, okay.
They're not using the coffee to wake them up and to.
Yeah, they're not. They're using the coffee for a performance factor, and as I said, for one person, it's really, really important to understand. One person, a particular food or nutrient might be really beneficial and help them get to where they want to be, and for another person, it's poison. Yeah, okay. So, for instance, like, people are going to be really shocked when I say this, but for some people, eating lots of vegetables can be poison to their body. Yeah, okay, because they can have digestive complications where they have problems with fermentation in their small intestine, or fermentation in general. Okay, and so if I go and just pile them with more vegetables and carbohydrates and all that sort of stuff, well, because they've got a fermentation issue, it means that is going to ferment even more. Then that produces particular gases like hydrogen, and the hydrogen ions can cause further damage to your small intestine. Okay, so and maybe I will bring up this like SIBO a little bit later, because it's really, really relevant to a lot of people, to why they can't shift body fat. Yeah, okay. But I might be stoking the fire. Does that make sense? Where I might be giving them kombucha and sauerkraut and kimchi, because everyone's going, oh, these are the things. But for one person, that might be making their problem way worse. Yeah, okay. Bananas and artichokes and chicory root and garlic and onions. Well, they're what we call fructooligosaccharides. And for people who've got negative gram bacteria, that is stoking the fire. That's creating inflammation. So people need to understand that everyone's different. We've got different problems going on, and you can't just look at the person next to you and just copy what they do.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, in saying all of that, where we're at right now, for someone who has no idea about any of this stuff, to hear that now, I would imagine, because it even happens a little bit to me, a feeling of overwhelm. Like, oh, great. First of all, everyone's different, but at the same time, how am I going to know? Where do I find it? How will I know for myself? So if we were from that perspective, and we're talking to people, to people,
and bring it back to basics.
Yeah. Well, what is the absolute most basic thing you would say to start with, that you would say the majority of people could do together to start moving them in the right direction?
Okay, so the one thing I'll give people a good platform where to start from, and what I want to stress is that I'm not saying one nutrition outline is more dominant than the other, because once again, nutrition is a little bit like training. it's going to be periodized, and it's going to train according to your environment, and like you might start to become more active, your environment changes, and then guess what needs to change as well? Your nutrition. So that's why when people go vegan, vegetarian, paleo, high fat, and they go, oh, that's the best outline. Well, they all have their benefits through different periods, maybe of your life. And they all have relevance to when you might actually need them in your life. Does that make sense? So
that's a really good point, because that means, what that means for me is that this search for the ideal and perfect diet just doesn't exist. I mean, it's about where you're at, where you're going, and how far along the journey you are, and to expect and know that, just like the exercise you do, or progression in any other area of your life, your nutrition has to move and flow.
It's going, because your body is going to adapt to what you eat. Yeah. Okay. And the reality is, like, actually one of the highest causes of when people get things like leaky gut or intestinal permeability is food sensitivities. So people being creatures of habit, where they just eat the same foods over and over again. Like most of the time, if I look at someone's food diary, they've got about 8 to 10 foods that they've been eating like every day for about 5 to 10 years. Now, you build up an intolerance to things like proteins and fibers extremely quickly. Yeah. Okay. So you look at the Aboriginals, and I'm not saying people need to eat like the Aboriginals, but in their traditional diet, they would have over 1,000 different types of foods in their diet. Okay. So people don't understand, by them just eating the same foods over and over again, that they're causing like damage to their small intestine, which is actually causing antibody response, which means their body has to respond to the inflammation taking place. Does that make sense? So like, I would really, like, a simple thing is like people start to, rotate their foods. Yeah. Okay. But if I bring it back to basics, which I think is really, really applicable to your viewers and the people that you're dealing with, is let's get back to basic science. Okay. And this is really, really basic science. Okay. Now, what do we want to regulate with people straight off the bat? We want to regulate their hormones. Okay. Because hormones are just messengers. Okay. So, and we're just looking at things like cortisol, like the stress hormone. We're looking at your sex hormones like estrogen and testosterone. Yeah. Okay. And then we're looking at your neurotransmitters, which is just your brain chemicals. Okay. And they're responsible for your behavior, like your mood, you feeling motivated, and all these types of things. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's just look at where these things come from. Okay. Because most people have the perception, if I say to people, where do your hormones come from? Yeah. Okay. And they'll go, if maybe they know a little bit about biology. Yeah. Okay. They might go, oh, they come from your endocrine glands. So, they come from your thyroid gland, and they come from your hypothalamus, or they come from your adrenal glands. That is just location. That's just where they're excreted from. Guess where they come from? Food.
Oh, wow.
They come from food. Yeah. Okay. Like your hormones, they're steroidal hormones. So steroidal hormones would be the ones that I talked about, like your sex hormones, like cortisol. Yeah. Like progesterone, pregnenolone. I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole, but steroidal hormones come from what? Cholesterol. They come from cholesterol, which has been persecuted in modern.
The thing that we've been told to watch out for ever since
that we've got to stay away from it. That, like cholesterol, when it comes to clogging your arteries and so forth, like cholesterol is trying to help you out. Okay, what it's trying to do is plug the holes that you're causing by like trauma in the arteries and so forth, basically caused by chronic stress and sugar consumption.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. It's like you getting injured on your motorbike, and then the ambulance arrives, and you tell the ambulance to go away. Yeah. Okay. That's a little bit like how we're persecuting cholesterol. Okay. But cholesterol is a lipid. It's a fat. Okay. So your steroidal hormones are dependent on how you how you synthesize cholesterol from your liver and how you absorb and break down fats. Yeah, okay. And the other thing is, then you've got peptide hormones, and peptide hormones would be things like insulin and thyroid. And like for your viewers, thyroid is your metabolism. Okay. And so guess where peptide hormones come from? Protein. Okay. So that's fats and protein. Then we look at your neurotransmitters, like your brain chemicals. Yeah, okay. Where your brain chemicals are biogenic. And biogenic in layman's terms means the precursor is an amino acid. Okay. So you look at serotonin. Everyone knows serotonin. That makes you happy. Yeah, it gives you joy. Well, serotonin comes from L-tryptophan. L-tryptophan is an amino acid. Okay, you look at dopamine, which gives you the motivation, get up and go to do what you want. Okay, you get up in the morning, you want to tackle life. Okay, well, that comes from tyrosine and phenylalanine. They're amino acids. Okay, now if they're not biogenic, then they're amino acids that act as neurotransmitters, which means they'll do both. Okay. And examples of that would be glycine and aspartate. Okay. Now so where do they come from? They come from protein. 20% of the human body is made up of protein compounds. So guess what it's dependent on? How you take that protein and how you assimilate it in your digestive system. And if you don't do that very well, guess what you're going to have problems with? Your brain. Yeah. Okay. And the other thing is, if it's not with your brain, I don't want to confuse your viewers too much, okay? But I love talking about this stuff. But there's a particular neurotransmitter called acetylcholine. Okay, now acetylcholine helps you with muscle contraction. So you want to be good at training and so forth, then acetylcholine, because it actually helps with your short-term to your long-term memory conversion as well. Okay, but not only that, it helps with an area called the vagus nerve, and the vagus nerve is the gateway to the parasympathetic nervous system. In layman's terms, that is rest and digest. So acetylcholine is excitatory in the brain, which means it gives you focus, concentration, all these type. But guess what? Inhibitory in the cardiovascular system. So it relaxes your heart, calms you down. Yeah, okay? And acetylcholine comes from choline. Guess what choline is? A fat. It's a lipid. Okay? So your hormones and your neurotransmitters are dependent on what? Fats and protein. Okay? So what do you think, to rebalance people's hormones and their brain chemistry, you probably want to focus on initially? Fats and protein.
Increase fats and protein.
Correct.
From good sources.
From good sources, yeah, okay.
So let me jump in there and try and dissect a little bit. What you're essentially saying, if I could boil it all down, is that the first thing you said in terms about basics is a really quick lesson on hormones and how important hormones are for pretty much everything in the body, and the fact that they transmit. Did you say transmit messages?
They'll perform an action that helps us do something. That makes sense.
And that makes sense. And to do that, what you're saying is, as we move into this stage of like processed foods and fake foods, and we don't even know what we're putting in it,
or whatever that might be,
and farm raised meats and
feeding
of cholesterol, right?
Yeah, like feeding animals food that they're not meant to eat.
Mm-hmm.
Just like us. Like if we eat toxins and all that, it changes our molecular structure, and an animal is no different.
Mm.
Yeah, okay, and so that changes the quality of the fats. So if I go to the supermarket and I buy a non-organic, steak, well, where do you think animals store their toxins? In their fat cells. So what do you think? What do you think the fat's going to be full of? Toxins, and it's going to be different types of fats. It's going to be omega-6s, which is to do with pro-inflammatory sort of activity in the body. Okay, so when people want to persecute, animal proteins and all this type of stuff, it's to do with quality. Like quality is the most important thing when it comes to the food that you're putting in your body. Just like if you're not eating organic fruits, yeah, okay, well, because the fruit has been sprayed with like herbicides and pesticides, that the basically the fruit perceives that it doesn't need to protect itself from bugs and insects and so forth. So it does. It's part of the fruit's immune system. So it doesn't produce the phytonutrients and the flavonoids and so forth to protect itself from the insects. So you're not getting those anti-cancer properties and so forth that you get out of the fruit. So people eat their non-organic fruit and they go, well, meat's really bad for you, but they're eating non-organic fruit that has herbicides and pesticides, which will definitely give you cancer.
So is it not only we're dealing with the spraying, but also what the spraying does to what the fruit actually produces?
Yeah, it changes the molecular structure of the animal proteins that we eat. It changes the structure of the fruits that we eat, and obviously the vegetables as well.
So, Dave, a lot of people watching will have already been going down this path of developing hormonal issues. I speak to lots of people who give me the laundry list of what they're going through, right? PCOS and thyroid and insulin resistance and diabetes, obviously. So essentially, am I right in assuming that whatever specific kind of thing we're talking about, which has become the result of this way of eating and this neglect of changing the hormones, they're all essentially the same symptoms of the same collective kind of thing that's going on?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, if we look at, I mean, I don't know if you're sort of going down that genetic sort of path as well, where people say, well, you know, like it's in the family, it's genetic and all that sort of stuff. You know, because like for me, like if you actually look at what's really going to be responsible for what happens to you in your life, I mean, genetics only really make up about 15% of what's going to take place.
Yeah, look, man, I mean, we have to really get to the place, and what I want to tell people out there is that you got to take control back. You got to take responsibility back about what you're doing and what you're feeding your body, because you can blame genetics all you like, but it's not going to help you out.
Yeah, well, and it's only a smaller proportion. Do you know what I mean? And yes, people can have genetic mutations where they can't metabolize particular nutrients properly and so forth. And you know, further down the line, you can start doing that investigation so that you might be taking things that help you metabolize certain things better and so forth. But you know, as we're getting unhealthier as a population, the genetics is playing a bigger part. But the best expression I like to use when it comes to genetics is basically the genetics is the gun, and environment is the trigger. Yeah. Okay. So like, I mean, it's just that simple. Okay. So if you provide the right environment, that is going to switch on your genetic predisposition to get type 2 diabetes, to get cardiovascular disease, to give you thyroid complications like Hashimoto's and so forth. Well, if you provide the right environment, then you're going to get these complications. Yeah, like it is just that simple. Yeah, and you know, and we see it more and more, is that like our lifestyle is getting worse. We're exposed to more toxins and chemicals and so forth. And guess what? That genetic percentage is going to get higher, okay? Because people are getting passed down bad gut genetics. They're getting passed on these genetic mutations, okay? And then the next generation, because we're not changing our lifestyle habits and eating, you know, food from the land and going further and further away from community and tackling our emotions and all these types of things, well, genetics is it's playing a bigger part. It's getting worse.
Yeah, so we're actually just passing it all down, not realizing that at any point we can break the pattern. But we have to do the work now. So that's a really important point for anyone watching, because oftentimes when we talk about this kind of journey that you're taking, yes, it's for you, and yes, it has to be for you. But I know that a huge part of it for you is also what legacy am I going to leave for my children? What am I going to pass down? And do I want to continue the pattern that
because
I've imported?
you will pass down, like if you've got really bad gut health, you've got really bad gut genetics, you've got bacteria going on, you've got things like candida, yeast, and you haven't done anything to realign that and correct that. Well, guess what? You're going to pass it down to your kids. It's just a reality. Yeah. Okay. If kids don't, like, we just look at childbirth, like if the child doesn't pass through the uterus and there's not a healthy amount of, good bacteria like microbiome there, well then, like let's say they had a C-section or something like that, well they're not going to acquire the good bacteria and the good microbiome that's actually going to help to set up their immune system. Does that make sense? So, and unfortunately, if you've got bacterial issues and you've got digestive issues and you haven't done anything about it, you are going to pass that down to your kids.
Wow. Okay. That's a huge point, and I think that's one of those points that a lot of people are going to kind of really resonate with, because it's so important. Could you talk to us a little bit about gut bacteria?
Yes.
And I love talking about and hearing about the creatures, the organisms that we have inside us that essentially are more us than we are.
Yeah, I mean, look, I could talk forever and a day about this, but maybe I could just bring it back to simple things. Like, we're made up of 100 trillion bacteria. Whatever stat you want to read, yeah, okay? Like, they say that's up to 10 times more than the cells in our body, okay? Now, even if it's closer to 1-to-1, does it really matter? I mean, because it's just an extremely high proportion, yeah, okay? Now, the one thing is, if we look at it from how we're looking at it from a medical perspective, and I'm not poking holes in the medical system here, because, in some instances, for bacterial issues and so forth, I've got to use things like antibiotics and so forth. They do serve a purpose, but once again, it just depends on the situation. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But they're looking at cellular health. So they're looking at really what's going on from the cellular level, which is amazing science. Yeah. Okay. And then really not looking at bacteria. Okay. Even though it makes up a high proportion of what makes us human. Yeah. Okay. Like, if I actually look at some of the roles that bacteria plays in the body, like 85% of the body is made up of good bacteria. 15% is made up of bad bacteria. So there is, whatever that synergy might be, there is a bit of a harmony that is taking place between the good and the bad bacteria. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. But what we're doing is we're disrupting that harmony, where all of a sudden we're turning the tables, where we're depleting our good bacteria, which means we're starting to have a higher proportion of the bad bacteria, which unfortunately then they start to cause inflammation and disruption in the body, and they actually will start to damage our cells as well. Yeah. Okay. But if I look at, yep.
What's the main cause of depleting good bacteria?
I mean, it's unfortunate. It's a long list. Okay. Chronic stress is right up there. Okay. Like, if you're really stressed out and so forth, I mean, that's a quick way just to wipe out your microflora in your small intestine, ruin it in your large intestine. You cause a negative effect on your hydrochloric acid production in your stomach, okay, which means you're going to have problems denaturing protein or deconstructing protein, okay, or just breaking down your food, yeah, okay? So chronic stress is a major issue. Then actually the quality of your water, okay? Like, if you're drinking things like tap water, well, guess what? Tap water is really, really high in fluoride, okay? And it doesn't have a lot of the minerals. And I do want to touch on water a little bit more towards the end, because it's something simple that people can do to even help with things like weight loss. I mean, we don't realize how important water is. And then we think it's okay just to have poor quality water that's got chlorine in it. It's got chemicals. It's so far away from the structure of what we would have been consuming, like spring water and so forth. It just doesn't hydrate you, because it doesn't have magnesium, it doesn't have chloride, it doesn't have potassium, sodium, phosphorus, calcium, all these things, well, you're not going to be hydrated. Does that make sense? So we're so far away from the water that we're meant to be drinking. So the quality of the water can actually cause disruption to your gut. Being exposed to like herbicides and pesticides and chemicals, they definitely cause disruption as well. And you know, other things like actually a lot of inflammatory response, having like food sensitivities can damage your gut as well. So the list can actually be quite long. Alcohol, unfortunately, alcohol is a massive disruptor of what's going on in your digestive system. Like if, I can just go this simple with alcohol. Alcohol is going to deplete you of vitamin A. Alcohol is going to deplete you of B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, B7, B8, B9, B12, sodium, potassium, like magnesium, all these minerals. And what people don't realize is those vitamins and minerals, they're cofactors for enzymatic process in the body. And what I mean by that is chemical reactions in the body that your body is dependent on to perform actions and to perform processes in the body that actually help to protect you and so forth. So like alcohol and it actually shrinks the epithelial cells in your small intestine, so you lose surface area in your gut, which means you've got more antibody response going on because particular proteins and so forth that would normally get filtered are going into your bloodstream and causing like an antibody response. And I'm only
scratching the surface.
I'm only touching on these are small things that I'm touching on. I'm not even going into deeper of really what takes place with things like alcohol and so forth. So these things are going to cause a massive disruption with your microflora and your good bacteria. So
and tell me, in terms, so we've got these 100 trillion bacteria, 10 times more than human cells. How much, and we've got the balance of good and bad, which we're depleting the good just based on our lifestyle. How much of an effect and what practical effects does that actually have in terms of things like control?
Like how we function?
Things like how we function in general. And then even moving down the area of what I like to talk about, which is emotions and how to regulate and release emotions. Getting triggered by things like, and we've just had Easter, spending time with the family, getting triggered into anger and all sorts of things. How much of an influence does the gut and that bacteria have on that?
Look. Well, I've already established like where do your neurotransmitters and where your hormones come from?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they come from food. Okay. Now, which area in the body helps you assimilate food? So which area in the body takes that food, breaks it down so we can utilize those components to help with our brain chemicals and our hormones? It's your gut.
Mm.
Yeah, like it's just that simple. Yeah, okay. That's why assimilation, and what I mean by assimilation is just taking the nutrient, taking the food, and then further breaking it down into more singular components. Yeah, okay, is one of the most important functions in the human body. Like literally, yeah, okay. And so really, like 65% of all your neurotransmitters, we've got like 122 neurotransmitters that we know of. Bear in mind, there's probably ones that we don't know about. Yeah, okay. 65% of all of those are produced within your digestive system.
Wow.
I mean, like it's huge. 50% of your dopamine production. So dopamine is the one that's going to give you, because a lot of people lack motivation, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they lack drive, they lack motivation. Yeah, okay. Dopamine is a real issue. That's why a lot of people, they have problems sticking to things. You know how many people I've had come into my facility and go, yes, I'm going to sign up for that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Yeah, okay. They sign up for everything and then we never see them again.
Mm.
Okay, that's a sign of low dopamine. Okay, they've got good intentions, but they can't stick to anything. Okay, and like 50% of your dopamine is produced within within the enteric nervous system. And the enteric nervous system is like, it's like what exists in your sheaths, in your esophagus, in your stomach, in your small intestine. You know, and it's sort of it's the nervous system that exists between your gut and your brain. Okay, so when you know you talked to me before about the gut being the little brain. Well, there's evidence to show that really the gut is telling the brain what to do.
Mm. There are more signals going from the gut to the brain, than the brain to the gut. Correct?
Yeah. Well, like if I can break it down really simple, yeah. Okay, it's just so that your viewers can really digest this with something that they've felt themselves. Intuition. Yeah. Where does intuition come from?
Well, we say the gut, right? Gut instincts.
Yeah, like when you've walked down an alleyway that's really dodgy, yeah,
yeah,
and you get that feeling in your gut. Your gut goes, "Hey, this is not good." Yeah, like how do we get out of this situation? Now, how often, when you've got the ability to listen to your intuition, which is a really, really important aspect, because most people, because of the state of their digestive system, they have an inability to have good intuition. Yeah, okay. How often does intuition tell you to do the wrong thing?
Never.
Exactly. That is the perfect answer. Okay. Then look at when you've got that feeling in your heart. You got that feeling in your heart that this person's really doing the right thing by you. You got that feeling in your heart that how you feel about someone. You got that feeling in your heart that it's the right thing to do. How often does your heart tell you to do the wrong thing?
Never.
How often does your brain tell you to do the wrong thing?
All day, every day, man. It's
all the time. It's like people pick up the jelly donut, they eat the jelly donut, and then they go, "I shouldn't have done that." That's your brain is all the time is telling you to do the wrong things. But we think this is everything. We think the brain is everything, and actually what we should be looking after is what's going on in our digestive system, and we should be looking after our emotions. Okay, you look at the heart, and it's got like 40,000 sensory neurites. Okay, which basically means it's like neurons. Okay, so guess what? The heart, which we used to say was just a pump. Yeah, okay, so it's just pumping blood around your body and transporting oxygen and so forth. The heart is responsible for up to 1,300 biochemical reactions in the body. And it actually produces its own hormones as well. So once again, there's more evidence to show that the heart is telling the brain what to do. And guess what, Nate? Yeah, okay? People have really, really poor digestive health because they've treated their gut like a garbage tip. Okay? And then they have the inability to deal with their emotions. So they're bottling their emotions away, okay? They don't really know how to deal with them. And guess what? That's your intuition, and that's your ability to listen to your heart to what are the best decisions to make. So those two areas in the body, this communication from the gut to the brain and the heart to the brain, completely interfered with.
And then you just said, when you started this, that the people who live longest on this earth have community, a sense of purpose, a sense of, passion and all of that stuff. And what comes along with that is certainty. And if you don't have access or the ability to trust your intuition or to trust your gut, then what chance do you have of being decisive, of finding your purpose, of sticking to something for long enough to make it work, of finding your passion or anything?
Well, 100%, because we've relied solely on saying, don't eat sugar. Yeah? Like don't eat it.
Yeah.
Some people who might have this incredibly already decent framework, maybe they don't have bacterial issues. Yeah, okay. Maybe they're just their mindset is extremely good. Yeah, okay. But we're talking about anomalies here. Okay. Now imagine someone who's got, like, I'll just use one example. Like they've got candida or yeast, which is just an opportunistic bacteria that we all have. but it's just taken advantage of a situation because you've got a compromised gut environment. It's a little bit like free real estate, and it's just gone, great, we'll just take over here, okay? And then Candida, yeah, okay, it feeds on things like carbohydrates and sugars and so forth, okay? Now, you know, and then there's a lot of byproducts that come from Candida. Like Candida will expel up to 95 different toxins into your system, okay? And one of those toxins is a thing called acetaldehyde, which you actually get from things like car exhaust fumes, you get from cigarette smoke, and you get from alcohol, okay? And that's going to affect which area in the body, the brain, okay? And that's when you get Candida, you're going to get depression, anxiety, nervousness, brain fog, yeah, okay? Your inability to handle stress properly, okay? But that Candida is going to crave what? What is it going to crave?
Sugar.
Sugars, refined carbohydrates, and so forth, yeah? And so, like, people are telling me that just telling someone, I just have the mental mindset to give up sugar is going to fix that individual's problem, when really it's a biochemical issue where basically the bacteria is going, give me sugar.
So now we get into this space, and there was a question asked about how does your gut impact cravings? And I guess you just started down that path then. That's essentially what it means. So people will say, I have a sweet tooth. I have cravings for sugar. That's my addiction. I'm addicted to sugar, addicted to chocolate. Well, it might not even be them that's craving.
No, exactly. Like and this one's an interesting one, okay? Because, and I mentioned it a little bit before, but there's a thing called FOSs. Now, people can write it down. There's a thing called fructooligosaccharides, okay? And basically, they're like a prebiotic for the gut. So they actually help the gut, okay? And I'll give you some examples of what they are. Bananas. Everyone loves bananas, yeah, okay? You've got onions, you've got garlic, you've got asparagus, you've got artichokes, you've got chicory roots. Actually, barley and wheat is classified as an FOS as well, okay? Now, FOSs, they can be, you know, apart from wheat, because I'm not big on wheat, yeah, okay? But FOSs, they're prebiotics, so they actually help to feed the cells in your small intestine. But if you've got negative gram-bacteria, okay, so negative gram-bacteria, and I'm talking about the pathogenic strains of negative gram-bacteria. What they feed on is they feed on FOSs. So they feed on garlic and they feed on onions. And the thing is guess what you're going to crave? I've had people come into my office, they've been in, because a lot of the issues when you've got negative gram-bacteria issues is you've got a lot of issues in the brain, okay, like inflammation in the brain, because actually it can lead to things like brain abscesses, and actually negative gram-bacteria is linked to autoimmune diseases like MS, rheumatoid arthritis, ankylosing spondylitis. There's a thing called Kawasaki disease. So that, and you'll get things like meningitis, pneumonia, urinary tract infections, and these like colds and flus, chills and fevers, okay? This is bacteria, okay? And I've had one girl who walked in, I'm sure she won't mind me using her as an example, because she was in tears. Immediately when she walked in my office, she was beside herself because she had tried everything. Yeah, and basically I said, okay, look, it's okay. Let's calm down, okay? All I want you to do is write down a list of foods that you like to eat. Which she thought, God, that's a weird approach, yeah, okay? And she was writing it down. I was looking at some of her other results that she brought in, yeah, okay? And then she handed me a list of FOSs. She handed me bananas, onions, garlic. So guess what was determining her food choices? Her bacteria. Her bacteria. Now, if I don't fix that bacterial issue, all I'm asking that girl to do is resist the urge. Resist the urge. Like, just don't.
Yeah, just do it. Just use your willpower and discipline. And if you can't do it, then you're weak.
And how long is she going to be able to do that for?
Yeah. Okay, that's a really interesting point. I think that one that I want to highlight there, because essentially that's what we're talking about here, which is the path of almost every diet that a person might go down. I've been on diet since I was 8 years old, or had been, and every single one of them, gives you a list of foods to eat or not to eat, and says, off you go, do that.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, well, for how long? For what time? Why am I doing it? What if I can't? And then you go 2-3 months if you're lucky, and then it all crumbles. So what you're saying
exactly. Yeah, I mean, and like, this, because obviously being around Fifth Element, and what we start people on is a high-fat diet, or if you want to call it a paleo diet, okay? Now, I don't want people to think that we're saying that people have to be on a high-fat diet and a paleo diet for the rest of their lives. But the reality is, with a high-fat diet, and what are we doing? We're helping with their hormones. We're helping with their neurotransmitters. I've already established that, okay? But fats, they reduce inflammation in the body, okay? And also we're taking away the food source for some of these bad opportunistic bacteria.
Which is the sugars and the carbohydrates.
Yeah, the sugars and the carbohydrates and the FOSs and so forth. Because if we keep on giving the bacteria, the food sources that they like to thrive on and that they like to exist on, then all we're doing with that individual is creating inflammation in the body. It's just basic what you want to rectify with people when they first walk in the door, okay? You want to rectify inflammation. You want to reduce inflammation, okay? Because that inflammatory load is causing major stress on the body, okay? And most of the time, that inflammation is coming from bacteria, okay? It's actually coming from your gut bacteria, okay? There's a little bit more to it than that. It's obviously toxins and, and the foods you're eating and so forth, but bacteria is a big culprit for that. The other thing is that you want to regulate blood sugar levels. Okay? You also, because if you don't regulate your blood sugar levels, okay? Because, people having things like insulin resistance and all these types of problems, okay? I won't necessarily touch on that right at the moment, okay? But I will, is that if we don't regulate blood sugar levels, it's a priority system in the body, regulating blood sugar levels. Because if you don't regulate your blood sugar levels, what's going to happen to you? You're going to go into a coma and eventually you'll die.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say diabetes, but that's the path, isn't it?
Yeah, okay. And then, so that's why it's so important to regulate someone's blood sugar levels, okay? The other thing is regulating their circadian rhythms in their body. Okay, and so what I mean by that is their natural sleep cycle, okay? Their natural cortisol levels throughout the day, and when they're producing more melatonin in the day, okay? And then the other thing is reducing their perceived stress, okay? So they're limiting perceived stress, okay? Wow. So they're limiting beliefs. And you can see this in Facebook. People on Facebook, they're going, oh my God, what are they writing about me? Okay. And this is just adding to their perceived stress. Yeah. Okay. So those 4 things are the major things when people come to see us that we want to regulate. Okay. And so how can I regulate 2 of those, even 3 of those, 2 of those definitely really quickly, putting them on a high fat diet or around a paleo diet, because I'm going to regulate what? Inflammation, and I'm going to regulate their blood sugar management.
As well as hormones, because you're increasing fat intake.
And it's just an added benefit, isn't it? Okay? It's just an added benefit, okay?
Wow. Okay.
And so, unfortunately, things like fats and now to a certain extent protein, they're just getting persecuted. Okay, one of the worst things that we did for people was tell them to go low fat. Mm-hmm. If you're going to ask me, if I'm going to be really, really honest, that has killed millions and millions of people. That's how serious we need to take this. 70% of your cells are made up of fat. Mm. So at what point did we think it was going to be a good idea to take it out of our diet? Your white blood cells, yeah? your white blood cells, and the role of your white blood cells is to recognize pathogens and bad bacteria and deal with those nasties. Okay, so it's protecting your immune system. Yeah, okay. Your white blood cells are dependent on saturated fat. Another thing that has been persecuted in society. Okay, because saturated fat allows our white blood cells and so forth to recognize pathogens and bad bacteria, protecting us. Okay, it's just like unfortunately there's so much miscommunication. Okay, that unfortunately has really come at the cost to a lot of people's health, and then unfortunately a lot of people's lives. I mean, that's how serious it is.
Well, those 4 things can be 4 things that a person can work on, and they do make sense. And everything that you've said has kind of blown me away, but it has made sense as it all comes back to the same type of thing. And I feel like it was wrapped up there quite well. Now, each and every one of those little things we can dive into. So we might do that at some point. I would absolutely love to. This is absolutely fascinating for me. Do you mind if I ask a couple of questions really quick?
Yeah, one more thing before you ask me a couple of questions.
Yep.
Yeah. So what I want the listeners to understand when I was talking about those 4 things, what I want your viewers to understand is the body has priority systems.
Mm-hmm.
It has priority systems. Okay. Now I'll tell you what those 3 priority systems are. Stress response is a priority system. So if someone's coming charging at you with a knife and you're sitting there eating your, like I'll say, sardine salad. Yeah, okay. Yeah. You're sitting there eating your sardine salad and this guy's coming charging at you with a knife. Which one is the priority? You digesting your food and breaking down the food, or dealing with the guy coming charging at you with the knife?
You've got to deal with the guy.
You've got to deal with the guy. So what is it going to come at a cost to?
Digestion.
It's going to come at a cost to digestion. How you process that food, because the body's just going to speed that up. It's just going to go, hey, this is not a priority. We can do this again later. Yeah, okay? So that's one priority system. The other priority system is blood sugar management. Okay, because if I do not regulate my blood sugar levels, once again, I will go into a coma and eventually I will die. And so what we've got now is people are going really long periods without eating, and then they're going extremely long periods without eating under stress. Yeah, okay. Now that's a problem, because which organ in the body consumes the most amount of fuel? Your brain.
Brain.
Yeah, okay. So when you're stressed out, the brain wants more glucose, it wants more amino acids, okay, because it needs to deal with the stress response going on. Yeah, okay. And I'll come, because I know you're going to ask about fasting, and fasting really comes down to when is the best time to do it. And what do you think is probably not the best time to do it? When you're stressed out. Yeah, when you're stressed out, because your body needs the nutrients, and like your brain in a moderately stressful situation will consume about 750 calories in a day.
Wow.
Yeah, okay, that's about 2 meals for most people. Yeah, okay. And so blood sugar management is a priority system. Yeah, okay. The other thing that is a priority system, yeah, is, so I talked about stress response. I talked about blood sugar management, and the other one is antibody response, which actually comes back to the bacteria. So imagine you've got some overgrowth of bad bacteria in your gut and so forth. Now, if your body doesn't deal with that bacteria, what would be the end result? It's going to cause damage to your cells, and it's going to end up in disease and illness. So your body must deal with that antibody response. It must deal with it. And so because those 3 systems are priority systems, it's going to come at a cost to other functions in the body.
Holy crap.
Like your brain.
I was just thinking when you said that.
Because your brain is important. It's not a priority. It's not a priority. That's why you get depression. That's why you get anxiety. That's why you get nervousness. Yeah, okay? That's why you get brain fog. That's why you can have all of a sudden go from being extremely smart to not remembering anything. Yeah, okay. And then it also comes at a cost to what? Digestion, because it's important. It's not a priority. Okay, which means you start causing problems with your microflora. You can't break down fats properly. You can't break down proteins properly. You can't deal with glucose molecules properly. Okay, and it's also going to come at a cost right down the chain. Guess what are almost some of the least important things? Bone density, not that important. Yeah, okay. Your joint health, so your tendons and your ligaments. That's why people get, repetitive strain injuries. Yeah, they get problems with their ligaments. That they get tendon tears. Yeah, okay. They get issues with their muscles. Yeah, okay. Because and that's why they get joint problems. Yeah, they get neck pain. Like I'll give you an example. If I've got blood sugar management, that actually causes you to have poor tonus in your lats. So for the viewers, the lats are the big muscles in the back, and the role of the lats from a biomechanics perspective is to stabilize the neck. Okay, so people with blood sugar management issues, they have an inhibition in their lats. Guess where they're going to get the pain? In their neck. So they get neck pain. Yeah, okay, and then we start blaming. We start going to physios and chiros and go, I'm getting this pain here, where it's a biochemical issue.
Give me a massage, yeah.
Yeah, it's a biochemical issue. You got to regulate your blood sugar levels. That's why you've got these issues, because those three things are a priority. They are a priority.
And I guess the thing that I thought as you were talking about this is stress response, chronic stress, blood sugar regulation, which is overeating sugars and carbohydrates, processed food, antibody response, all those three things together. That's not uncommon for a person to be experiencing all of them at once. And and that same person might be under all of that, and then not getting enough sleep, rushing to the gym after work, smashing themselves 7 days a week.
Yeah, because it becomes like a deck of cards, because once again, because those systems are the priority, well, it's going to come at a cost to things like sleep
as well.
Yeah, like it's going to start to ruin your sleep, because once again, sleep's important, correct?
Yeah.
Is it a priority? No. I mean, and that's why you can get 1 hour sleep, and next day you still function. You don't function very well, but you can still function because it's not a priority.
So you get people coming in, David, that say to you, "Oh no, I function better on 2 hours of sleep than 8."
No, I mean, like, look, you can get by. Okay, the one thing is, Nate, there's a difference between surviving and thriving.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Like, my aim is to help people thrive, not just survive. Just likewise, like I'm a big advocate of animal fats and animal protein and so forth. And I'm not saying you can go on a vegan diet for the rest of your life, and I'm not saying you can't survive. Okay, like, you can survive. Do I think you can thrive? No, I don't necessarily think you can thrive unless you take stress out of your life. Yeah, okay. If you take stress out of your life, you go live up in the mountains. You could quite happily live on just a plant-based diet. Okay, because once again, you've got to eat according to your environment. You look at, like, when we're talking about Sardinia and the Blue Zone areas where they do have a bit more of a high plant-based diet. Okay, but once again, they don't have the stress that we have in our day-to-day lives. Yeah, okay.
So important. That's so important what you said, because we do have all this talk about vegan, vegetarian. It's becoming a bit of a buzzword. It's growing in popularity. I'm hearing a lot more about it. But what you're essentially saying is, well, I mean, in order to deal with everything that we've got going on in our lives, living in this society the way we choose to live, and not living in the mountains in nature and having no stress, in order to thrive in that environment, including make money, have a family, do all those things that need to be done, then it just requires you that you eat in a certain way.
It's just different needs, Nate. just different needs. I've got no problems. Like if people want to eat a vegan-based diet, great, and I'll help you do that. But you must adhere to what I was talking about with stress. Yeah, okay. Because there's a higher demand on things like amino acids and so forth when you're really stressed out, and as I said, there's a higher demand on your hormones and so forth. So those fats and those quality amino acids that you're getting out of the animal proteins, they're meeting that need. Yeah, okay. So it's 100% down to the environment. Does that make sense? And if you're willing to meditate more, put more time and effort into your emotions, and you know, like move a little bit more in terms of get good circulation and all these types of things. And as I said, eat the best quality food, and as I said, extract yourself a little bit away from, you know, the day-to-day stress that we have in modern society, then you can function quite happily on a vegetarian and a vegan-based diet. Yeah, okay. But once again, like my point always, Nath, is that you must eat according to your environment. Okay. Now, like people, like I'll use the example, like people say to me, but there's some guy in the Buddhist temple and he's eating a bowl of, you know, broccoli and some bean shoots, and that's all he's eating every day. And I go, fine, go live the same life as the Buddhist monk. Don't live the life that you're living here, where you're working a 12-hour day, you're getting 6 hours sleep, and you're stressed out, and then live on the bowl of, you know, broccoli and bean shoots.
Yeah, how do you think you're going to be?
Well, you're gonna ruin your hormones. You're gonna ruin your hormones. Okay, that guy, he's meditating. He doesn't have that same day-to-day stress. There's a different demand. Okay, but people are looking at these people and they're modeling that's what I'm going to do in this environment. Don't model yourself on what someone's doing in a non-stressful environment.
Mm-hmm. Okay, does
that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. What would a person who has been through a lifetime of dieting, what type of reactions or causes
issues would they have caused on their body?
That cause in terms of what we've been talking about really quickly?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole array, but once again, I'll try and keep it a little bit simple. Yeah, okay. Now, like most of your viewers would have heard of like your thyroid hormone. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I'm not going to get into all the different types of thyroid hormones and so forth, because that starts to get a little bit complex. Yeah, okay. But the role of your thyroid is really in charge of your metabolism. Okay, so its role is to do what? Is to take energy, take food, and take calories and convert that into energy. Okay, and also it has other roles as well. There's no way that something just has one role. It has a multi array of different functions. Yeah, okay. And like the thyroid will help with hydrochloric acid production, help with pepsin production, so that helps with your digestion. Okay, it helps with neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine. It helps to regulate your blood sugar levels. Okay, but the big thing is that it plays a major role in your metabolism. Yeah, okay. And in particular, there's a particular thyroid hormone, which is your most bioavailable thyroid hormone, which is called T3, okay? And you have a huge amount of receptor sites throughout all your tissues and organs in your body for T3. Now, guess what regulates T3 production?
Cholesterol?
Food consumption.
Food consumption.
Like, so if you've gone through like a lot of your life eating like 900, 1,000 calories, 1,100 calories, well, you've eaten in a major deficit. Yeah, okay. Now, there's benefits to undereating, and I'll just outline a few of them. Yeah, okay. Benefits to undereating is it can help with detoxification. Yeah, okay. It can help with insulin sensitivity. Yeah, okay. So I'm not saying there's not benefits. Okay, but there's benefits to overeating. And what I mean by overeating, I'm not talking about someone going out and eating 2 large pizzas and a 6-pack of beers, yeah, okay? Because you're still malnourished. You're not giving when I'm talking about overeating, I'm talking about giving your body, you know, like all the macronutrients and the micronutrients. Like you go out, you have a big organic, slow cook. You have, sweet potato, pumpkin. Yeah, you have like your avocado, your coconut oil, your olive oil, and all these types of things. And the benefits to overeating is it stimulates your thyroid production. Okay, and it stimulates your sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen. Okay, because like I've already said it. Like your hormones are dependent on you eating food. So if you're eating nothing, what do you think you're down regulating? You're down regulating your hormones. You're down regulating your hormones. And like Harvard Medical University took a group of guys, and bear in mind for females, it's worse than guys. Okay, like if you want to battle the sexes, who can fast, who can undereat, yeah, who can go longer periods without eating, we win. Mm-hmm. Guys win. Most people have the opposite perception on that. They think, oh yeah, we can do it. No. The complexity of female hormones and so forth, it's in our evolution. Guys were hunters. We would go long periods, and we haven't evolved that much yet. Okay, so they actually took a group of guys. The guys were consuming about 3,400 calories, and then they just cut the guys' calories in half. 50% deficit, 1,700 calories, which is actually, by most people's standards, is a lot of calories still.
Yeah.
Okay, and they sat back and they recorded what happened to them. Okay, and they started to get things like suicidal tendencies.
Wow.
Yeah, depression, anxiety. Yeah, okay. Their T3 production was affected, so their thyroid production was affected. Okay, because likewise, eating less food can help rest your adrenals, but likewise, if you've done that for too long a period of time, it can stress out your adrenals. Mm. Yeah, okay. And so so the reality is what they found there, it's even worse for females. Okay, because and you know this from being here, that a lot of the time we're getting people in there, we're reverse dieting them. Mm-hmm. So we're actually increasing their calories to do what? To stimulate their metabolism again. We have to stimulate the metabolism. If we don't stimulate the metabolism, where have you got to go from 900 calories? What, 800?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then where do you go? 700?
Oh, we'll just increase the exercise, mate. That'll make up the difference.
Yeah, like that. Everyone thinks it's calories in. Like it's all about energy expenditure. Okay, so basically, eat less, train more. Yeah, my formula is when you're doing less, like when you're eating less, you're doing less. Mm. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And that was.
So what you're doing is you're walking, get into nature, yoga. Don't stress out your body by pulverizing it. Yeah, okay? Because when you're causing a lot of muscle tissue breakdown and so forth, you have a higher demand for muscle repair and so forth. You're causing more inflammation in the body. Don't get me wrong. You know this, Nate. I love training, yeah, okay? But your training must suit your nutrition.
Yeah. What so for a person who's been overweight for their entire life, and they've been dieting, and there've been periods of a lot of calorie restriction, but also periods of binging and overeating the wrong type of foods for so long. If you're speaking to that person and you're going to say to them, well, what we're going to actually do is increase the food that you're eating, it feels and sounds so counterintuitive.
I understand, because there is a bit of social conditioning behind that. Yeah, okay. Because that's what we're led to believe in the media and so forth. As I said, if someone's got a high energy output, okay, which I'm really basing on what? Yeah, I'm not basing it on this sort of formula of just your lean muscle mass, just how much energy you're expending. Mm-hmm. Like I'm basing it on how stressed are you? Because if you're more stressed, you require more nutrients. Okay, how much are you using your brain? Okay, like you're making big decisions, you're studying. Well, guess what? You have a higher energy demand. Mm. So if you're not getting it from food, where's it going to come from? Like little fairies in your body, like producing these things. It's just like it's got to come from somewhere. Yeah. Okay. So like I use those things to really establish like how much and that's why it's different from person to person. Yeah. Okay.
So you're saying that one of these people that we're talking about here, who's under an incredible amount of stress, they will have to do the work to reduce that stress and the perceived stress. But in the meantime, while that stress is there, let's make sure you're getting the nutrients. Let's make sure you're getting the food
100%.
to handle what you're going through so that we can start to, wow, that's big.
100%, because people need to learn to fall in love with food again.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the people I work with, and myself included, I had lap band surgery in 2005. And so have a lot of the clients that I work with. And essentially there's a period there where food is not your friend at all anymore. I mean, you've gone through a lifetime of hating it, and then have surgery cuts all that off.
Well, because unfortunately people they're scared of food. Okay, and we've scared them by scaring them away from fats. Okay, so saying cholesterol's bad, saturated fat's bad, so they're scared of fats. Okay, and then we scared them away from protein. Again, too much protein is really bad for you, and all these types of things. And the reality is because people have got digestive issues, they can't process protein properly, and they're eating poor quality protein. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with protein. Yeah, okay. And then we scared them away from carbohydrates. Okay, because and a lot of people do have problems with carbohydrates, but I've got no problems with carbohydrates. It's just reestablishing what's going on in your body, and then teaching people when it's fine to eat carbohydrates, like what time of the day, when are you going to utilize it better, and so forth. Does your body utilize it correctly, and so forth. So the problem is that people are scared of fats, they're scared of protein, they're scared of carbohydrates. What are they going to eat?
Confusion.
What are they going to eat? So people are scared of food.
Mm.
Okay, and they have this perception if they eat more food that this is going to cause problems. And actually, it actually helps your hormones. It actually helps your thyroid. If you eat poor quality food in high amounts and you're eating junk food, of course that's going to cause problems. But that's not the problem with good quality food. Mm. So what we've done is we've taken high amounts of food and we've chucked good quality food into that category of saying if you're eating too much food, yeah, okay, that it's bad for you.
Yeah,
like your listeners would have a heart attack, and like you see me, would you say that I'm overweight guy, or that I have?
No, mate. No, oh God. Oh yeah, no, I've seen you training. Yeah.
Yeah, and I consume, like on stressful days when I'm doing a lot of work, when I know that, and I deal with a lot of people one-on-one, I do seminars and so forth, and I know on those days that I'm going to consume about 3,500 calories.
Wow. That's a lot. I don't think I've hit that mark, not with that good quality food for a while. And
exactly.
That was,
and because I had one of our clients that came in here, and you might know him. This guy called Vince. He came in here about like 210 kilos. Yeah, okay. And I looked at his food, and the first thing I established is that he was consuming about 600 calories.
Oh.
And so what do you think I had to do? I gave him more food, and actually I got his calories up close to about 4,000.
Wow.
And he's about 160 kilos now.
Wow. It definitely is for me, and I love that demonstration, but walking into your gym, I had come from a place where I was a personal trainer in Sydney. I had been on this massive weight loss journey, and particularly that part of the journey when I trained in that gym, for me was all about how do I have the biggest muscles, how do I look the best, be the leanest, take Instagram selfies, get lots of likes, be a better personal trainer based on how my body looked. And I was training twice a day, 7 days a week, going all out.
And the unfortunate thing is, Nate, is a lot of the time that relationship has caused the issues in the first place. Like, you know, like most of the time, like there's always shortcuts to everything that I've been telling you. There's always a shortcut. Okay. And a shortcut is just drop my calories and increase my output, and drop my calories so low that it's going to cause issues with my hormones. And are you going to get a result? Of course you're going to get a result. What's the consequence though?
Cost, yeah. And that's exactly right, because, you know, I did find myself in this place, and physically I looked good, but coming to your gym and starting to train, it was really confronting, because I'm just being like held back. I'm like, no, don't sign up for jiu-jitsu as well as training, as well as CrossFit, as well as boxing, as well as strength training. Let's bring it all back. Let's do some, ice therapy. Let's do some meditation. Yeah. Let's eat more food. Let's train in a way that doesn't create stress.
And sometimes as simple as just move more.
Mm.
Just move more. Like we know, like the people who have some of the least incidence of cardiovascular disease in the world, they get up to about 17,000 steps in a day.
Wow.
And we say people get up to 10,000. And I'm saying that's great, but it's still not as high as the people who have the least incidence of cardiovascular.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're heel striders. Human beings are born to walk.
Mm.
Yeah, okay? And we just don't. Like people, they might hit 500 steps in a day. If they're lucky, 1,000 steps. Okay? Yeah. And then, do you know what I mean? And then, we wonder why we've got these issues, yeah? And, for some people, they might need to train. They might need to do some weights, and they might need to train a little bit harder, okay? But, sometimes it can be as simple as get more fats into your diet, get good quality proteins. I can be a little bit funny about fruit, yeah, okay? I'm not, and I want the viewers to understand I'm not anti-fruit, yeah, okay? But understand this whole thing about 5 bits of fruit a day, that's ridiculous. Yeah, okay. You want to cause some blood sugar management issues. Yeah, okay. Eat 5 bits of fruit a day.
Yeah, and we had this discussion. I had a nutritionist on who showed us some examples of fruit sizes, and you look at a recommended size for a banana is about that big. They sell them as kids' bananas. Meanwhile, I walk into Woolies and we got ones like this big, and people are sitting down and eating the whole thing, plus grapes, plus fruit salad.
Well. And if you've got insulin resistance, which unfortunately a lot of people do, okay, and there is a bit of misconception of what insulin resistance is, because it means you just got a transportation issue, which means you can't transport glucose into the cells in your muscle for energy, okay? But if you've got insulin resistance, which means you're not taking that pathway, and so you're not transporting the glucose into the cells in the muscle for energy, actually. That's taking a different pathway, which is what they call the GLUT1 pathway, which is the inflammatory pathway. It actually leads to things like tumors and so forth. Yeah, you're causing more inflammation in the body. You've got more free circulating glucose in your bloodstream, which causes more disruption with insulin. Well, you can only tolerate about 25 milligrams of fructose a day. That's about that much of a banana.
Right.
Yeah, okay. Don't get me wrong. With people who I've corrected their issues and so forth, do I start to give them fruit? Yes, in smaller amounts. Okay, because a third of the fructose that gets converted to glucose in the liver gets converted to fat. It gets converted to glycerol. Now, as I said, there's a lot of benefits to fructose in very, very small amounts. But unfortunately, also what fructose does, so base this on the 5 bits of fruit a day, it actually impedes on a hormone called leptin. Okay, now leptin is what you produce in your adipose tissue and your fat cells, and leptin tells the brain, stop eating. So you want to eat like 5 bits of fruit a day? What do you think you're going to start to have problems with? You're gonna have this going on.
Wow. So it really is all linked in together.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but once again, I don't want to make it sound like fruit's the enemy, because I'm a big fan of fruit, good quality fruit. But you have to get your base environment right first.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, because bacteria unfortunately will feed on sugars and fructose and so forth. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So and unfortunately, when I'm talking about those pathways and so forth, fructose takes a different pathway. It's called the GLUT5 pathway. And actually, when you've got issues with how you metabolize fructose, it's actually because that pathway is heavily linked to what's going on in your digestive system, your epithelial cells in your small intestine. So that's why people have a further problem with fructose metabolization.
Right. Whoa. Okay. Man, I'm absolutely loving this. It's like information overload, but I'm cautious of the time. So what I think we might do is leave it there for now.
Yeah, that's fine, mate.
I wanted to say a huge thank you. Thank you for what you're doing, and thank you for spending the time here with us to talk us through some of that stuff. I've got a lot to dissect and put together there, and it's given me so much to look at and work on. The information in there is absolutely it's stuff that I've never even heard before, and I'm a person who has been down this road of transformation, so I've been passionate about it. And I guess that's one of the key things with the person who says, yes, but I just don't know where to start and what to do. I always say, this needs to be something that you become passionate about. Like when I see you talk about gut health and the way that you can pull things out, I can see the passion. And when you're passionate about anything in that way, then the energy you put towards it is going to produce results. And what better thing out there is to become passionate about than your own health and your own ability to, like you said, thrive in the world. So what you're doing is incredibly important, and you really need to get that message out and out and out.
Yeah, thanks, mate. It's been a pleasure. And I don't want, the one thing I'll point out, I don't want your listeners to feel, because I love to go down the rabbit hole, that, but what your listeners really need to do is just extract those major points. Don't worry about the technical elements that I'm using and so forth. Yeah, okay. Because the point I'm getting across to people is we need to be in love with food again.
That's
okay? We need to be in love with food, because you know what? Your body is dependent on it. Mm-hmm. And you persecuting it and ridiculing it, and that's coming at a cost to your health. Your hormones are dependent on, your neurotransmitters are dependent on it. Okay? The production of protein compounds that help to save you in most instances are dependent on it. Enzymatic they're dependent on it. Okay? And so it is literally that we have to learn to fall in love with it again. Okay? And I'm just bringing it back to basics. Let's put that a little bit more focus on a little bit more fats in your diet. Yeah, more good quality proteins, good quality vegetables. Yeah, okay. And sometimes having a little bit more cooked vegetables just to help with your digestion. Yeah, and like even as simple as like getting a whole heap of low sulfur vegetables like carrots and zucchini and celery and steaming them up and then pureeing them and put bone broth and rosemary and making a soup out of it. It's just like nourishment for your digestive system. And get back to good quality water. Yeah, okay? Like 70% of your brain is made up of water.
So quickly, a tip for people to get good quality water.
Yes, you can drink mineral water. Hepburn Springs and so forth. Now, why? Because that actually helps with your ability to uptake oxygen. Okay? Like every biological function in the body is dependent on water.
Right.
And water is the ultimate transporter because of its makeup, because it's oxygen and 2 hydrogen molecules. It has the ability to permeate through membranes, so it just transports things around the body. Detoxification, pH balance in the body, regulate body temperature, break down byproducts. Yeah, okay. Get like a filter on your tap. Yeah, okay. Like, you know, like a reverse osmosis. If you can do something like that, put minerals back into the water. You know, if you're going to buy bottled water, buy good quality bottled water. Yeah, okay, like Fiji or something like that. It really needs to be in a bottle, not plastic. Yeah, okay. Because unfortunately, the plastic's been exposed to the sun. The plastic's gone into your water, and then that's causing problems with toxicity and estrogens and all this stuff.
Damn it. Yeah, no, yeah.
Okay? And include good quality electrolytes in your water as well. Okay, like that's hydration. Magnesium, chloride, phosphorus, calcium, potassium. Yeah, okay. You know, I can't remember which one I forgot, but basically, you know, like, and a good, not one that's strawberry shortcake flavored or like sugar. Like, it should taste like salt. Yeah, and a simple thing you can do is get like half a lime, quarter a teaspoon of like Celtic sea salt. Put that in warm filtered water and start your day. That's minerals. Okay, the more stressed you are, the more you're depleting minerals out of the body. Okay, like we sometimes, and you know what? Sometimes people are mistaking hunger for dehydration.
Right.
Yeah, and you know you're dehydrated when you eat meals and you have to drink water with it. You're dehydrated. And guess what? You drinking the water with the food is affecting how you break down food because you need an acidic environment in your gut to break down food.
You're diluting that with the water that you're drinking along with the food.
Yeah, like you should be drinking water. If you're drinking water throughout the day, you're not going to be guzzling like 1 liter of water with your meal. That's going to affect how you're absorbing the nutrients.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, like it's sometimes it's simple things like that. Don't eat in a stressed state. Yeah, okay. Sit down with your family, have a meal. Don't sit in front of the TV. Don't do work whilst you're eating. Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Like as I said, like we get back to that blue zone that they're sitting down, they're eating with their family, they're celebrating food. Celebrate food. Get back to celebrating food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what? You're dependent on it.
I think that's probably the key message to all of that is to fall in love with food again. Because if you do that and you go down the process of getting in touch with how your body feels again, what your gut's saying to you, then that's going to be the main guiding force that's going to help you to choose what food to eat. It's just going to be the stuff that you actually eat.
Unfortunately, Nate, you know, people, they're consuming things like gluten, they're consuming things like sugar and all these things that play on opiate receptors in their brain, which unfortunately they're addicted to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Now, what I'm talking about, what I get excited about with food, like when someone comes and they've got a big slow cook and I'm basically drooling, you know, like there's saliva coming out of my mouth because that excites me. Yeah. You know why? Because it tastes amazing and I know what it's doing to my body.
Yeah.
You know, not because I'm playing on these things of addiction in my brain and so forth. Yeah.
Right. And that's the difference, right? Because it's like, you know, I might say one of my main rules is eat the foods that make you feel good and don't eat the foods that don't make you feel good. But people say, hey, Nathan, but, you know, chocolate makes me feel good and chips make me feel good. And it's like, well, we're talking about two different things.
Well, unfortunately, Nathan, there's a pretty simple saying, yeah? You know, coffee, chocolate, alcohol is a short-term gain for a long-term pain.
Mm.
That's what it is. You know, you do ice baths, you train, yeah? You change your diet to a high-fat diet. Guess what? It's a short-term pain, but it's a long-term gain. And the choice is yours.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much, Dave. I really appreciate that.
All right.
Good luck with everything, and I would love to have you back on for another one somewhere down the track. It's going to be amazing. And good luck in Sardinia in September, right?
Yeah, September 21st to the 28th. Yeah, if anyone's interested, it's going to be an amazing experience. Surrounded with like-minded people, people who've already really changed their lives, and then we're going to be, surrounded obviously by people who are some of the healthiest and some of the happiest people in the world. Okay, really, really interesting as well as they have the highest longevity out of men in the world as well.
Wow.
Okay. So it means they're definitely doing something right, because, you look in Western cultures and so forth, most Western men, I think the ratio that men that live to over 100 compared to women, it's like in Australia, it's 1 to 8. Okay? Now in Sardinia, it's 1 to 2.
1 to 2, wow. That's awesome. I can't wait to see what comes of that and for you to share some of that experience. Thank you, mate. I appreciate it so much. Go off and enjoy your weekend. I hope you have a good time. We'll catch up when I get back to Melbourne in a week.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Nath.
I'll just stop the recording.